Okay, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the awareness event for the Supervisory Manager process. Thank you very much for dialing in this afternoon and joining us. It's really encouraging. We've got 39 people on, so that's really encouraging to see. It means that we've got some real interest in these exciting roles. We've got a number of slides which we're going to go through today, and then there's the opportunity to ask us questions anonymously through Slido. The Slido side of things will be left open for a few more days afterwards, but I'll leave others to explain a little bit about that. So we've got some slides we're going to go through. First of all, I'd just like to welcome everyone for joining, and those that have joined us from outside the organisation. Thanks for showing an interest in North Yorkshire. It is a fantastic place to live, a wonderful place to work. We've got, a brilliant, diverse range of attractions within North Yorkshire. We've got the Yorkshire Dales National Park. We've got North Yorkshire Moors. We've got York. We've got the fantastic coastline. It is just a brilliant place to work and live. One of the lowest crime levels in the UK, and if you've got family, well, what better place to bring up your family? So it is just a great place to be, and so thanks very much for showing an interest. So this afternoon, what we're going to do is just tell you a little bit about North Yorkshire, where we're heading, our plans and our ambitions. And then we'll come on to talking about the process that we're now advertising for. So we've got a number of different people on who are going to be speaking today. So I'm John Foster. I'm the Deputy Chief. I'm Director of the Service Delivery element of the service. We've got Jonathan Dyson, who is Director of Assurance. Jonathan will be on shortly to talk through various aspects. We've got Phil Wild, Director of Capabilities. And again, Phil will be talking a little bit more about his work. And then we've got Tom Hirst, who is the head of Hambleton and Richmondshire district. And Tom, new into the service himself, so I'm sure he'll be able to share some of his experiences of landing with North Yorkshire from South Yorkshire, and hopefully tell you how wonderful it all is. But Tom's running this process along with our colleagues from HR, who are also involved in running the whole process. So without further ado, we shall move straight into the slides that we'd like to share with you. Please use the Slido mechanism. If you've got any questions, please ask them. Don't shy away from that. So what we're about? Well, we are one of 4 Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner governance arrangements. So there are only 4 services in the UK at the moment, and we are one of those 4. So if you are joining us, you're in that privileged position to be rather special. And I'm sure that there will be more services up and down the country going that way, because that seems to be the preferred model that the government are currently pushing for. Now, to explain a little bit about how that all knits together, how it works for us, the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner Julia Mulligan produced in 2019 a fire and rescue service plan. That sets out 4 priorities, which I will come on to very shortly. The Chief Officer, who joined us 2 years ago now, alongside the Fire and Rescue Service plan, set out his ambitions for changing and transforming North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service into a different service that really serves the public well. And so therefore you'll see that we have got a document, Ambition 2025, and again that sets out a whole range of things that where we will operate and some tools in there to do it with. And then beyond there, we have now produced a service strategy document, and that is where each of the 4 directors have contributed into that strategy, and we've each set out under our directorates our vision, our strategy for delivery of the Fire and Rescue Service Plan and Ambition 2025. And then beyond there, each of the group managers, heads of functions, have then produced tactical plans, and that's how they will, at a district level or within a functional level, deliver the service strategy. And then the next part is where you come into play. So the supervisory managers are the very front-facing delivery element of the service. And I say that in such a way that, you know, if we've got a number of roles, some are within specialist functions, some are out on fire stations, but essentially you are, or you will be, really instrumental to delivery of all of those documents that you'll see on the left-hand side. And that is done by your plans locally as either watch managers, crew managers, in the various functions and various places that we've got vacancies available. So really challenging times ahead, really ambitious times ahead, and really exciting times ahead to start now to deliver all of this work out to the public. I'm going to be a bit now like Matt Hancock on the next slide, please. Okay, so the Fire and Rescue Service Plan, this is the Commissioner's plan, sets out 4 areas of priority that we have got to work towards. The first one, caring about the vulnerable. It's all about people, it's all about making sure that the most vulnerable people within our society are protected within their homes, within their mobility, whichever facet it is. And when I'm talking about vulnerability, it's not just the elderly, it's the young, it's those with disabilities, it's anybody out in any type of vulnerability. So the vulnerability to roads, the vulnerability to water risk, it's all of that. Ambitious collaboration is the second priority. As I've said already, we are one of the 4 police, fire and crime governance models, and that is founded upon a collaboration agreement whereby the enabling services, the support services, if you like, from both services come together under an entity called Enable North Yorkshire, and they will be there delivering our services. But it's beyond there. Collaborations meets all facets. So we will be working hard to collaborate closely with our health colleagues, with local authorities, so that we can deliver the very best service to suit those vulnerable people, to meet the needs of those vulnerable people. The realising potential is about creating an inclusive environment and providing the right tools to be able to deliver the very best service. So we've really got a lot of really dedicated people within our service. We've really got to tap into all of that now and move forward to realise all of the potential that we can do. And then finally there, the effective engagement is whereby we're committed now to being engaging with the community, engaging with staff. Today is an engagement session wherever we can do, so that we're constantly spreading messages out there, talking to people, understanding people's needs and wants, and so that we can try and satisfy those from the service point of view. Okay, next slide, please. So, in order to deliver all of this, we have introduced a brand new set of service values, and here they are. So, the first one, and arguably the most important one, is people. And what this is about, it's what we're about, why we're here, why do we even exist? We exist to serve the public, and we put people first. So this is about making sure that every day that someone comes to work, they're not thinking about the gym session, the cup of tea, they're thinking about what they can do to serve the needs of those people, the public. And that's what we're here to do. So, you know, it's all about really getting into the nitty-gritty about looking after people, looking after our own people, looking after the people out in society. But it's the public that we've got to put first. And in order to measure how successful we are at that, we will be looking at achievement of positive results. So we need to know what difference we're actually making as a service. And if we're doing things that aren't really achieving anything, then we should question that, either adjust it and adapt it, or stop doing it. But everything should make a difference that we're achieving. The next one, inclusion. It's all about now inclusion. So everybody, doesn't matter whether you're the 20-year firefighter, the watch manager, or the brand new recruit onto that station, everybody should feel included. And if that inclusion starts within the teams that we've got, then we've also then got to think about the inclusion of all facets of society. So we need to make sure that we represent our communities and make sure that we've got a workforce reflective of that community, so that we can really serve their needs. Creativity. We encourage and promote creativity. So in order to deliver all what we aim to do, we want people with creative minds. We want people that come to work with different ideas of how we might do things slightly differently to meet that vulnerability, to make sure that people feel included. And so we really welcome the entrepreneurial flair that people may have. And again, it comes back to, it doesn't matter whether you're brand new recruit or what stage of your career at, everybody's got a part to play in this. So we want people to be creative. And then finally, learning. So we will never stop learning, and we all constantly will do so throughout all our careers. We want to become a learning environment, a learning organisation, and we won't be blaming when things go wrong. It's very much about learning from where mistakes are made, understanding why it's gone wrong, and then learning from that so that we can constantly improve. Now, obviously, when people blatantly flout the rules and do things maliciously, then that's dealt with accordingly. But overarching principle is that we learn, we don't blame, and we try and move forward in that veins to become better and stronger. So the values really, really underpin everything that we do now. And so, you know, we want people to live and breathe those values. The culture of the Fire and Rescue Service, you know, when you read our HMI report, when you read some of the national reports, the culture of the Fire and Rescue Service in certain areas needs to change. And that's no different in North Yorkshire. We recognise that. And it's you people that we want to recruit to help us change that culture. So, you know, it's really important you come into this open-minded and up for the change, because we've got to change that culture. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the part I stopped talking, and now I'm going to hand over to other people. So, Jonathan, I'll invite you in to talk about the next slide.
Cheers, John. I'm going to go to it. So, building on from the values, Ambition 2025 is a vision document, and it uses the values that we just discussed, or John's discussed there and displayed, into what we will use those values for, with the people, the creativity, and the learning. Ultimately, the delivery tools are what we do in our day-to-day role. It's our statutory duties. But we need to remember that response is not our core delivery method. We have to do everything possible to make communities more resilient and prevent the fires and the injuries and the vulnerability in the first place, working with partners, which comes into the enabling tools. So the prevention, protection, response and resilience are our 4 areas that we will use in service delivery to target everything we're doing towards the communities and the vulnerable and other areas where we can, to make sure that we're delivering the best possible service. It's about creating capacity. Ultimately, with shrinking budgets, we need to do more with what we've got, and ultimately to make sure communities feel safe and be safe within North Yorkshire. So how will we do this? Individuals, everybody from the firefighter, anybody into enable, and up to the chief fire officer operates around these principles. We all have responsibility and accountability for our actions. But most importantly, we need to use that to try and drive change, being creative and learning and taking, where necessary, responsibility for doing something different. Seeing an opportunity in a community, taking the responsibility to try and adapt what we're doing, to meet that need, and then being accountable for the outcome. And accountability, as John has said, learn not blame, isn't on a negative aspect, but it is acknowledging that if there is something we need to do and we need to change, then we share that learning across the county. And we all have equal accountability within that to make sure the taxpayer receives the best value for money out of the service we're delivering. Freedom and flexibility. Ultimately, in different areas, there will be different aspects and capabilities that people need. Scarborough's needs will be different to Selby's. So a one-size-fits-all system doesn't work. Whilst we will have a community risk model which identifies and defines risk within North Yorkshire, there is the expectation that as watch managers working with stations and group managers on there, that you will then develop and use the freedom and flexibility to tailor the services that you give to the communities and the vulnerable within there. If it works within that area, again, we have the responsibility and accountability to share that and everybody learn and develop from what we're doing. The flexibility is afforded to you insofar as we will not then centrally monitor under measurement and monitoring everything that we do. We'll have a core responsibility that we hold central, and then when we have to report to the HMI, to the PFCC and any other statutory body, then we can do that. But measurement and monitoring isn't something then that is a big stick or something to beat people with to try and achieve a certain outcome. It's about using tools and systems to then support people to achieve what they need to. If you trial something in Scarborough or Selby and you've taken responsibility around that, you've used freedom and flexibility to adapt your approach, then you'll be given tools of data and supporting networks to then measure what you're doing, evaluate the outcome, and then share that learning around the service. Ultimately, maximising what the taxpayer receives, the reduction in vulnerability, and the time that we physically give to the communities and the public to deliver everything we need to. When we look towards collaboration, which is another key aspect of what we're trying to achieve, it's planning, partnership and performance monitoring. Planning is something the fire service historically is very bad at, and it's something that we are now ardently driving forward. So the crews, everybody in the organisation will see the next 4 years planned. You'll be able to access that. You will understand at what points changes will be happening, why they're happening, and what your place in that is, and how to support that. That's the golden thread. We should make sure that the causal effect of everything you're doing then ties in and goes to a single line back to what the vision of the organisation is. If we're doing something and it doesn't have a positive outcome, or if we don't learn from it, or it doesn't actively help the communities, then there's no point doing it. And that's also for firefighter training, the delivery of what we're doing. If we need to change the training that we're doing, the competency frameworks that we're working with, then we will do that to make sure that the training you receive is equal to and matches the risk within the communities. Partnerships are essential, and we have learned a significant amount through COVID. We've got direct access now into data systems with the council, and we're using this to build our RRM. We're triangulating data to see where they have an issue of vulnerability, how we can possibly assist and impact, and also how they can assist us to help deliver better services towards the communities. And ultimately then, performance monitoring. The same standard applies into the measurements and monitoring. It will be centrally monitored, but won't be centrally controlled. The group managers on district or in specialist functions will devise their own data sets to provide the evidence of the causal effects of their work. And all of these tools together makes it the central part about maximising value for money. We have to get and deliver maximum value for the taxpayers' money in all of the outcomes that we're doing. And causal effect is the key area that we look to, and that's what we will measure to make sure we are effective, efficient, and we're giving the right economy to what we're trying to achieve. Thanks, John.
Okay,
Thanks,
I think
to you, Phil.
Sorry. Next slide, please, Emily. Okay, so trust and empowerment are incredibly important in all of this to bring it all alive. You'll be leading and working with teams at the task level has already been discussed. And of course, that's a role that's really influential in the way that we deliver our services to the public. It's been said already by John, you will be the ones at the face of our service delivery. You'll be the ones that are interacting. And also, again, it's been said already, this role that you'll be doing is incredibly influential in changing culture within our organisation as well. You'll be providing the necessary leadership to your teams. So the four boxes on the slide, some of us will already be aware of these. These show the way in which we can deliver our services, how you can deliver them. So on the left, we've got the don't do, and in contrast, on the right-hand side there, we've got the just do. Now, Jonathan's just previously talked about the tools you can use to do these aspects, but in a nutshell, we want you to be working on the right-hand side of these four boxes wherever possible. And of course, that's the just do. So we need you to live and promote our new values, as already been discussed. We want you to achieve results by being proactive and creative. Provided it isn't immoral or illegal, then we're probably on safe ground. But of course, we understand that you may have to check from time to time, you know, perhaps seek advice and guidance before going ahead with that just do. And therefore, we've got the ask then do. And this is a learning process again, which again, John has already alluded to earlier on. But I think it's important to stress as well that we have got an appetite for risk now, more so than we maybe did before. Again, just to reiterate, we want you to be bold and creative in the way we approach our work and achieve the results that we're aiming for. Again, we are learning, we're not a blaming organisation. We want to treat our people right, and hopefully we are treating our people right, learning from mistakes rather than blaming, which helps to improve performance all round, showing you that we support you to do your best. And again, we'd expect you to be supporting your people to do their best. Going on from that then, trust, absolutely imperative that we've got trust within our organisation. And on the screen there, you'll see the trust equation. On the bottom, you've got that one denominator, but there's three aspects along the top of the equation. So increasing the value of the factors on the top of that equation increases the value of the trust all round. If you increase the bottom factor though, the self-orientation, then that decreases the value of the trust. I'm going to explain that a little bit more now by breaking it down a bit. So in terms of credibility, that's really got to do, that's related to the words we speak and how we translate those into actions. How credible are you? How credible are you seen to be? And you may be considered credible for several reasons, such as your experience, your knowledge, skills, competence, for instance. And of course, in the roles that you do now, you'll be demonstrating that credibility, but it's really important that you have got that credibility. Reliability has got more to do with our actions, about how we go about our business. So if you say you'll do something and you do it, then that of course builds trust because you're dependable and seen as dependable. Basically, you do what you say you're going to do and don't let people down. Now that scores high on reliability, and building up that credit in the bank, so to speak. If you build up a lot of that credit, then you'll be able to withstand the time that you don't always live up to expectations, which is just how things are sometimes. We always aim to be the best that we can be. So sometimes we don't really achieve maybe what we want to. The intimacy refers to the safety or security that we feel when entrusting someone with something. And again, this is key to us, isn't it? It's about building relationships with internal and external colleagues, with partner organisations and the public. In simple terms, you know them and they know you, and you're happy to share things with them because you've got that good relationship. So those top three factors, really important to score highly on. If you score highly on the self-orientation bit though, then that reduces everything that we've just talked about. So the self-orientation refers to the person's focus themselves. So in particular, whether the person's focus is primarily on themselves or if it's on others instead. So self-orientation is the most important variable in the trust equation, to be fair. Someone with a low self-orientation is free to completely and honestly focus upon public and your colleagues, not for your own sake, but for the sake of the public, who, as employees, we exist to serve. So again, back to our values with this, it's all about people. And I suppose you'll often hear organisations being described as credible and reliable, but it's really the people within the organisations that make them what they are. And of course, intimacy and self-orientation are almost entirely about people as well. So overall, trust requires good scores on all four variables in that equation. You want high credibility, high reliability and high intimacy scores. And of course, you want a low self-orientation score to get the overall final outcome in terms of the level of trust. And living our values is the best way to increase our trustworthiness, basically. So at that point, I'll stop and I'll ask for the next slide up, please. And I think it's back to you, John.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, just going to talk a little bit about Enable North Yorkshire. So this is the collaboration agreement between North Yorkshire Police and North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. For those of you dialing in from other services, we have a joint police fire headquarters now. We have a joint transport and logistics hub, and we have a number of fire stations which also encompass police presence on those stations as well. And that's likely to grow over time, and that's how the collaboration is predicated. It's about bringing together two organisations within the support functions and sharing what we can do, but maintaining the operational elements and functions separately. So we've got 5 functions within Enable: finance, ICT, estates, fleet logistics, people, and then business design and assurance. So they are the 5 functions within Enable, 5 function heads, and that has been coming together, if you like, of people from both sides of the organisations to now serve both organisations through those 5 work streams. Can you just flick onto the next slide, please, Emily? Okay. This is the strategy which Enable are working towards, and it's predicated on 3 fairly simple principles, really, which is simplify, standardise and share. So simplify is about exactly that, simplifying the processes, removing bureaucracy between the 2 organisations on how we buy things, how we administer things, and simplifying it as much as we can do across both organisations. And then it's also about standardising. So where we have different processes, just standardise that process and make it simple. And then finally, sharing good practice across both organisations, sharing estates, sharing the things that we own together so that we can become more efficient and effective. And overarching, it's building collaboration between both fire and police as close as we can do, notwithstanding our various different operational responsibilities. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are all elements now of the service strategy, which we're talking. So I'm now going to talk through the service delivery elements of the service strategy. And again, predicated on 3 fairly straightforward areas. So reduced vulnerability, it links very closely back to the fire and rescue plan 4 priorities. So the reduced vulnerability is to cover all elements of vulnerability. And I've mentioned before, it's about on the roads, it's the in the water, it's fire, it's people's mental health. It's a whole range of different vulnerability that we now really want to get closely keyed into and look to see how we can reduce that vulnerability overall within the service area. Back to the values, it's about the public which we serve, and every day we come in, we should be thinking about how we can reduce that vulnerability. And the supervisory managers have got an absolute frontline role to play in delivering that. The second is about building resilience. So that is about resilience within our service itself. And we do that through making sure that we've got resilient systems in place, but it's also then linking into the local element. So we're members of the local resilience forum, and we need to really build and strengthen our work within the forums. It's building resilience within the regional and national capabilities. So again, we've got regional arrangements with our neighbouring fire and rescue services. And then nationally, we've got access into and also support the national resilience and asset teams. So we've got high volume pumps, we've got a number of national assets available, which we share nationally with our partners. But then bring it back to a community and a local level. It's about going out and it's about really building resilience in our communities. So accessing local community groups. So where we know that we've got areas prone for flooding, for example, we can have a real influence in those areas in supporting flood action groups, for example. And if there aren't any already formed, we can help form those sorts of groups so that we really are building resilience and putting support back into the local communities. And then finally, you could argue emergency intervention. So that obviously is what we're all about. It's our prime number one responsibility so that when we have to, we can respond effectively to any style of emergency that we come across, and we need to make sure that all our training, competence, equipment, and everything around that is all satisfactory, first class, and ready to go when we need it. So that's what the overall service delivery strategy is about, and it's about delivering the very best to the diverse people within our community and making them safer. So I'll now move on to Phil, back to Phil to talk through the capabilities strategy.
Thanks, John. So yeah, capabilities directorate as it is, that consists of two functions now. One of them is prevention and protection, and the other one's response and resilience. And of course, within both of those functions, there's a number of different supervisory management roles. Some of you will be more aware of those than others because you may well be operating within them. So in terms of the strategy for capabilities, the main purpose of the capabilities directorate is to, as it says on the bottom there, provide service delivery with all that it needs. And when we think about it, I've broken it down really into those three main areas. We've got guidance, we've got expertise, and we've got resource. So in terms of guidance, both response and resilience and prevention and protection will consider what guidance is out there on a national sort of like perspective. We get guidance coming in all the time through different channels. And of course, a big focus at the moment is our national operational guidance, which is a really good example. What we do with that guidance and how we then translate it into a way that is understood by all within our service sits very firmly within the functions that operate within the capabilities directorate. So that's very much part of what we do. But of course, we also have the expertise in the capabilities directorate to be able to support service delivery. So within prevention and protection, for example, we've got experts in community safety and fire safety who are qualified and have a degree of competence within those areas. But equally within response and resilience section, we have experts, who really know their subject matter, who they can then translate that out and provide that support to service delivery. And of course, within capabilities as well, we sometimes do provide service delivery as well, because we've got the experts going out and doing maybe the more complex fire safety sort of audits, for instance. And then finally, it's all about the resources, isn't it? So providing service delivery with the correct resources, such as the fire appliances, the equipment. It could be prevention and protection sort of resource, such as mobile tablets or CFMIS as an example. So really, when you think about the capabilities directorate and the strategy, it is all about you as supervisory managers contributing to providing that support to service delivery. And again, it depends really where your sort of like interests lie as to where you see you might fit. But again, really exciting roles within the capabilities directorate to really improve the service that we provide overall. So without going on too much longer, I think I'll stop there and hand over to Jonathan, who's going to talk about the assurance directorate.
Thank you. Right, folks. So plan, monitor and evaluate. What this has been drawn from is a results-based management principle. It's designed to achieve as much as possible insofar as this is a golden thread right from the PFCC, so the fire rescue plan through to what the cause and effect of the work that is being done on station every day and then throughout all of the departments. So ultimately, planning is using technology and data and our organisational knowledge, what you know within your areas and what the service knows from its community risk model, to identify the most vulnerable in the communities. And then it's working with partners to make sure that any intervention they're doing or intervention we're doing are both delivering the causal effects, i.e. reducing that vulnerability. John's service delivery tools, prevention, protection, response and resilience, are the direct means by which we communicate and which we work with communities, ultimately making them feel safe and be safe. But to do that, we have to have an impact on those communities. Because that's the forward-facing element of where we physically interact. So as John said, we need to make that as strong as possible and as the best possible equipment and kit through Phil. Assurance will then monitor and measure the outcomes of what you're working with and the level of service that give to the service. So it's a dual role in what it's trying to achieve. But ultimately, by better understanding the community, understanding the risk, it means we can target the resources, target your work and target all the processes that the organisation does into delivering continuous improvement. And under assurance, we have James Manning as the Group Manager for Operational Assurance and Stuart Simpson, who is the Training Group Manager. So training is a key element within this, because whilst Phil is then delivering the National Operational Guidance and the learning that comes into the organisation, John is providing the service delivery. Training also is a key aspect in that, to make sure that we are flexing and working towards having a workforce which is fit, competent and capable to deliver risk mitigation in the community, being wherever necessary, of course, that emergency response element. Monitoring. Now, none of this is new within the fire services. It's just probably something we haven't done very well before. The NFCC now have a work stream which is just dedicated to evaluation, because nationally, as budgets shrink, we need to make sure that we can evidence what we spend and how we spend it. And ultimately, in theory, go back to the government and say, we have delivered this with 34 million. If you give us another 6 million as an arbitrary figure, this is the greater impact that we could have. Making sure you've got the freedom and flexibility to drive change and be creative will give us the results that we need. We need to learn from and make sure that we absolutely maximise from the benefits of doing things differently. Instead of doing things one way because we've always done it that way, there is a different approach, there's a different technique, and we'll learn from that. One of the points I have to implement is an evaluation framework to make sure we achieve that. And that will be supported by toolkits, so that there will be a continuous cycle of monitoring and then an annual assessment, a validation of what the organisation has achieved, what you has achieved as crews and watch managers, and then ultimately how we have fared and what we've done against the fire and rescue plan. Monitoring and measuring and assurance is essential to deliver this. We will never learn if we don't evaluate on what we're doing and continuously re-evaluate what we're doing. And then the final part is the evaluation. Because we're a risk-based organisation, we are uniquely placed to have a positive impact on communities, vulnerability reduction, and also into key partners. The fire service can pretty much get into any house, any building, because of the positivity and the method in which we deliver, and people are genuinely happy to see us arrive unless the house is on fire, of course. And that is different to some of our public service colleagues. So we have to use that, we have to use the brand, and we have to use that positive element we have with communities to help them. Now, evaluation provides planned regular assessment about the quality of the work which we're delivering and the outcomes. Again, this isn't about chasing targets, this is about learning from and understanding the causal effect, i.e. if you do A and B, what is the result in C? And we need to use C to constantly learn about what we're doing. We'll never improve if we don't. Ultimately, I want to create easier access for partner agencies and the public to understand what we do, how we do it, and how they can interact with us to help us then develop and learn to serve their needs. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. We're now going to hand you on to Tom to talk through a little bit about the county and about the process itself. So over to yourself, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, just a quick slide about our county, really, for the external people online today. First of all, first of all, I introduced myself. Quite new to the service myself. Started in August, and Yes, so far I've been completely overwhelmed with the warm welcome I've received. Really is a friendly service and a very proactive service from everyone who I've dealt with and encountered so far. So yeah, really positive move for myself. So yeah, regarding North Yorkshire itself, it's the largest geographical county in England. It has around 820,000 residents, and that's spread over 3,000 square miles. John already touched on earlier, it's got 2 national parks, the historic city of York, a fantastic coastline, and beautiful towns and villages. So that attracts up to 20 million visitors each year, which I think me and John could get a job for the tourist board if we, as well as the fire service, because it's a beautiful county and we get visitors, which leads to challenges, but also a tremendous amount of opportunities as a fire rescue service. Emily, if you could move on to the next slide for me, please. Yes, talking about the process itself and the roles available, we've got a wide range of roles available. We've got positions in operational roles. We've got duty systems 224. We've got day crewing, and we have self-rostering. For the day crewing and the self-rostering, a little bit of information in relation to that. You do have to reside within the radius of your station for those sort of duty systems to ensure nighttime operational cover is maintained. We've also got positions within our training department and other functional roles such as prevention, protection, response and resilience. Within the functional roles, we've got what you've got is you've got a you're required to be on call 1 week in 10, and for that you will receive a 7% additional payment. That's to allow support within that role. All of this is further explained within the recruitment packs. And any further questions beyond the recruitment pack or that we can't answer today, please feel free to email the recruitment email that you've used to register for this event today. So we'll just quickly cover the timeline. So the process, it opened this week, and we've got our open day today, our virtual open day, which has been recorded. This is so it can be used for further reference, or people who unfortunately can't make it today can also get a chance to watch it back. The process then closes into the new year on the 10th of January at midnight. What will happen then is there will be a blind sift. This is to ensure there's complete fairness within the process, and that'll be based around the questions that we've or the information you're going to provide from the questions we've set out within that recruitment pack. The next stage, how I'll explain this one is, so if you're successful through the sifting stage, if you've already passed stages 2 and 3, or you are a substantive crew or watch manager, you will proceed to the presentation and final interview. For everyone who does need to undertake the stage 2 and 3 assessments, the stage 2 assessment is an online test. This is supplied by an external provider, and what that's looking into is your managerial judgment and your ability to be able to make effective decisions around real life managerial situations. If you're successful during the stage 2 phase, you will then proceed on to stage 3. Stage 3, we are doing that ourselves through a Teams that will be carried out on the 21st to 22nd of January. There'll be a lot of times available throughout them 2 days. And what that's looking at is it's about making managerial and leadership decisions, but under some time restraint. So that's stage 3. From then on, what we'll do is then everyone who's gone directly to presentation and final interview, and everyone who's been successful in stage 2 and 3, will then get a chance to present a 10-minute presentation and carry out an interview. I'll talk about that a bit more on the next slide along. But then if we're successful through there, there'll be an operational assessment. What we'll be looking at throughout the operational assessment is making sure that you've got operational competence and command presence to be able to manage an incident at a supervisory level. Following on from the completion of all this, We'll then be going through some pre-appointment checks, and then we'll be offering a position. So as I said in the slide before, in relation to the presentation and the interview stage, what we're looking for is we're looking for people with the right strengths and values to deliver our ambition. So the aim of the interviews and the presentations on that day is to give you the greatest opportunity to demonstrate those strengths, skills and values that we'll be looking for. And how we'll do this is we'll be using the Leading Yourself and Leading Others section of the NFCC leadership framework. We'll also be looking into your PQAs that's expected for the supervisory roles you'll be applying for, and most importantly, the really important thing is we will be ensuring that our values align. So your beliefs and values are in line with what we're looking for within the service. What I really sort of can't emphasise enough is, can you please make sure you really do put every effort into each element of this process that you will be required to undertake, because we're expecting, and we've already had a lot of interest, so we're expecting a very competitive process with a significant number of candidates. The SIFT, the presentation, the interview and the IC assessment, they'll all be marked, and the higher the overall score, the better opportunity you'll have to secure the appointment of preference within the area of service you're looking for. The presentation wise, what we'll be doing is, if you're successful within the SIFT process, we'll be giving that presentation detail out there and then to allow you plenty of time in advance to get that presentation together. And I could explain what it will be about. It will be about when you arrive in your position within that first 18 months, how you will deliver it, what you will do within that. That will give us a great oversight of what you're planning to achieve from that slide at the beginning that said your plan. You tell us what you can do, show us that enthusiasm, show us how you can lead people to reach your objectives and our objectives alike. That's what we'll be looking for. So the exact detail of that will be coming out after the SIFT, but there it is. It's there available for you now. That's where it'll be, because equally with that, we can send that presentation to your line managers. This is where you want to, your new line managers, this is what you're wanting to deliver for us. That line manager can then, how can I help, support and guide you to make that come true, make that a reality. So hopefully we'll see you all soon. From myself and everyone else, we wish you all a very Merry Christmas and fingers crossed for a more normal New Year. Emily, Jonathan, Phil, we're all here now for questions.
If we can have a look at some questions now, Emily, and then I'll come in at the end just to sum up, please.
Okay, just bear with me one moment. I'll just pop them up. Can you all see the questions?
Yep, we can.
Okay, so if we go through them one by one, and then I have myself and Emily, one of the HR advisors, and from an HR we've got Caroline and Marinda as well. So we'll be, and obviously with John and Phil and Tom will hopefully be able to answer all your questions today. But the Slido is available up until the 23rd of December, and you can ask any question you have following the instructions on the left hand side, in terms of just going to slido.com and putting the hashtag and the number 45737. So the first question we have is, can on-call crew managers apply for the roles, or is it purely whole-time? For this particular one, yes, absolutely. Of course, providing a substantive and competent as an on-call crew manager, you would be able to apply for these roles. So that's that. The next question, can I apply if I was a competent whole-time firefighter but left the service to pursue other interests? Unfortunately, at the time of applying, you would need to be a substantive competent firefighter. So for that one, it's you would need to be actually employed by the Fire and Rescue Service. The next one, as a competent crew manager, would I also be required to go through the third stages of the process, as I'm already assessed biannually? For this one, if you are a substantive competent crew manager, you wouldn't need to go through stages 2 and 3. You would go straight through to the presentation and final interview. But if you do have any queries regarding that, just don't hesitate, as Tom said and John, to just email your queries to recruitment, the same that you registered with. Next question. Do I need to upload a CV as part of my application? No, there's no need to upload a CV. It's based on application only. The next question, do I need to register as a user on the online application system to apply? The answer to that would be no, you don't. You can actually apply through being a guest. You don't necessarily have to register. But if you have any queries on that, as I said, we're all here. If you even afterwards have any queries or difficulties, just give us, don't hesitate to contact us. The next question, how many vacancies are you recruiting for? As Tom said, and Tom, quote me if I'm wrong, there are a large range of opportunities available. I don't think we have an exact number at the moment, but as I said, there is a large range available.
Yeah, and it might be worth touching on that there's a transfers going on at the current moment as well, so we can't give the exact roles available because they might be subject to change. Some transfers into different positions. Absolutely, because as part of this process as well, obviously there's the opportunity for internal transfers for crew managers and watch managers, as Tom's mentioned. Will this session be recorded? Absolutely, we're recording as we speak. The recording will be available. We'll put it onto the Blue Octopus, where you would fill in the application form. Will be available on there and also on our website after this has finished today. Will copies of the slides be made available? Absolutely. As all information from today, so the slides and the presentation will be available following the conclusion of this today. Next question we have is presentation and interview in person or via Teams? Tom, I don't know if you want to answer this. Hopefully, fingers crossed, depending on the outcome of the tier system and what happens post-Christmas. We are hoping that presentation and interview will be in person, but now we've got new Monday ways of working. We won't let it stop us. If we can't do that, we will revert back to Teams.
Okay, great. The next question, what shift system do your training department work? Do they specialise in subjects or cover all? Hopefully, Caroline, would you be able to answer this?
How about we ask Jonathan as director
yes.
after that function? Jonathan, do you want to answer that one?
Sorry, just asked what the question was again. So it's what shift system do your training department work, and do they specialise in subjects or cover all?
I can answer the first part of that question. Day duty system is the duty that training centre staff are conditioned to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they work a day duty system, but they do have, there is within the contracts a night-time or weekend requirement within certain elements. This is something that is currently static, but again, if a role review was required to make sure that we can deliver Ambition 2025 and we can meet the needs of crews and on call, then that would be something that we look at. As for specialisms, we have officers which are leads within departments, and again, this is something that I would look to review. We need specialists within each area, but we also need people that are able to deliver across the broad spectrum, so that we're not just tied within one subject. And as those subjects change, for instance, with the outcomes from Grenfell or any other review or anything that comes through, we need that functionality and flexibility to be able to deliver across and have people that are able to deliver across the organisation as well.
So the next question is, do we have to go through the full process if we have been banded? If you have been banded, you wouldn't need to go through stages 2 and stages 3. So you would go straight through to the presentation. So following the initial sift, if you were successful at the sift, you'd go straight through to the presentation and interview and ops assessment. Do you deal with transfers first as a substantive competent watch manager? Tom, do you have any information about that?
If I guess, sorry, it depends if that's a external or internal. If it is the internal, we are doing the transfer. That's running parallel the transfer process as well as supervisory management process at a similar time. If it is an internal for that question, which presuming it may well be.
So the next question, which Tommy may be able to answer, part 1, if it is about getting the right people for the right roles, what if there are only 2 candidates that apply with the intent to get one particular role?
Well, yeah, if it once again, if that's it's dependent on if this is about the supervisory process or the transfer, you know, the internal transfer process that we're doing. If there is more than one candidate, or even if there is one candidate for a particular role, I can see there being a professional discussion for that point. If it is the this process that we're discussing now, as I discussed in that the slide in relation to the presentation and interview, the SIFT, the presentation interview and the operational assessment will all be scored and marked, and the better you do within those, the overall score, the better the opportunity to get the role of your choice. So I hope that
this is sorry to go over you there, Tom. It's a 2-part question. Do you want to read the second part of the question, and then I can come in and support Tom on that one as well, please?
Sure, absolutely. So part 2, if they are both sifted out and their job is offered to somebody who didn't necessarily want the job, are we truly achieving the best people for the role?
So can I just come in on that one? It's quite simple, is this one really, because if we are this isn't about appointing for specific roles, it's about running a process. And it's quite simple. If we don't get the right people for the right roles that don't want to do it, then they won't be offered the roles in the first place. And we will possibly even go back out and recruit for those roles particularly. So, you know, this is about making sure that we do get the right people in the roles. Tom, did you want to support that?
Yeah, certainly. It's not about skills, just skills and skills alone. It's about skills, strengths and values, and making sure that we have the right people with all them right 3 things in the right places. So hopefully that will answer that question. And like John says, if we haven't got the right people with those right 3 things, we may have to re-put out until we get that right person.
Okay. Move on to the next question. Is the overall process similar for those in control, or will there be differences?
Yeah, we discussed this yesterday with the control room, and when there is a requirement to run a process like this, it will be the similar format for control. It'll be a smaller condensed version of this. Yeah, but it'll be the same layout.
The next question, will you be doing a similar process for station manager roles in the near future?
So again, if I can come in there, interesting, we've just run some process for station managers. I'm assuming that this may well have come from an external interested person. Yeah, I mean, we've just filled this year alone 5 group manager roles, 7 station manager roles, and the knock-on effect now is to do the supervisory roles. I think, you know, as and when opportunities arise, as and when vacancies occur in the future, we will follow sort of similar process going forward.
Okay. Will you be interviewing transfers to ensure you appoint the most suitable person? It will if it's I don't. Oh, sorry, John. Were you wanting to go in there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable to come in and just talk through that one. Really, we have a transfer process currently in place for firefighters to move from one location to another. And so really what we're trying to do now is replicate that process. So it's fair for our existing crew and watch managers who want to transfer to a different location to be offered up that opportunity. Now, where we've got 2 or 3 people all want the same place, then we'll have to have a look at that. But there's a whole range of issues that we have to look into that process. It's not just about you know, its individual needs, and everyone's got certain circumstances. So we have to take a range of things into account when we do the transfers. And as Tam's intimated before, if necessary, it may fall down to perhaps a professional discussion, but we can't really give a definitive on that because of all the different factors that go into that process.
Okay. So the next question is, if already competent in role within North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service and substantive in the on-call capacity, would I be able to apply and go straight to presentation and interview? So it would depend which role you were competent in. If you're a competent firefighter, you would need to go through stages 2 and stages 3 before going to presentation and interview. But it just needs a little bit more. Obviously, depending on what your role is. But if you have any specific queries afterwards, just get in touch with us. The next question is, within the application questions, is there a limit on evidence expiry, or only use evidence from 5 years, 3 years? Do expiry dates matter if it's about values and abilities?
Yeah, I'll let you go first on that one, Tom, and then I'll come in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the 2 questions, one of them is a work related, about what you're proud of, and the second one is about values inside and outside. I would like to think they are ongoing and current and relevant and continuing almost month by month, week by week, not rooting into the past to try and find an occasion where something's aligned, because what we will be looking for, we're looking probably within the interview questions to see a bit more about that, you know, to really make sure you have got the values that we're looking for. John, did you want to?
Yeah, it's a sort of question which relates back to the old days of the PQA style process, if you like. Where we did used to stipulate that you had to have a currency on it and so on and so forth. My advice on this one really is to dig deep within yourselves. And no doubt some of you will do things in your personal lives that really demonstrates that you have the right values. And similarly, we want people to bring forward evidence of what they do within their current day and work environment as well. So there'll be a range of evidence that people will have, which will demonstrate their values and their skills and their knowledge and their ability to do what we need. So it's about dig deep and bring what you feel is the right and appropriate style of information to an interview process and within the application process. So yeah, that's the case. But forget the old PQA side of it. That's no longer really applicable.
Thank you. So we'll go to the next question. Is there potential for a whole-time substantive crew manager to get a post as a watch manager? Absolutely. If it's whole-time substantive crew manager, absolutely. There's the promotion option available there. John, I don't know if you want to comment, or Tom?
Yeah, no, so yeah, that's certainly
Yeah.
available.
It's a straight yes. Yeah.
Okay. If you do not go through the process, would you still be able to apply for temporary positions that become available? Absolutely. Would we?
So one thing we probably I do need to discuss as well is obviously we're expecting a high amount of people enter into this process, and it being a highly competitive process. For those who are successful, but there may not be a position readily available for them, they will sit within like a talent pool for 12 months. So potentially that they would sort of be given opportunities if they are temporary, or as people retire or potentially leave or move to further promotions, they will then get offered those positions. And it probably be the same for a temporary, but yet there'll be still availability to do temporary when required.
The next question is, due to being 4 hours from North Yorkshire, could I have the option of doing the presentation and interview remotely? I know that face-to-face is better. At the moment, obviously, because of the COVID restrictions, we are doing a lot of our all of our recruitment actually at the moment is doing it on Microsoft Teams. So with hopefully looking at concluding at the end of March this process, I would say that it would probably be over Microsoft Teams, I'm thinking.
I'll just come in there, Emily, where possible, if we can still social distancing at headquarters or a venue of choice, we are preferably going to do it face to face. And I would like to think if you are wanting to join our service, you will be willing to make that journey to come and show us everything you're about and everything you've got face to face, if we can do that. If we can't do that due to any sort of COVID restrictions, we will be reverting back to Microsoft Teams.
Okay, next question is about on call. As a competent crew manager on call, would I have to still do stages 2 and 3, even though I'm substantive, if successful on application of the course? Caroline, do you want to answer that one?
It depends on the status of how that crew manager is substantive. If it's a station specific promotion, we would have to look into the details of that. But if it's a substantive competent crew manager, I think it's, as you said before, Emily, they would bypass those stages.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Marinda. And the next question, if having demonstrated competence through a North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service process within the on-call and holding a position within the whole time, would that person be eligible to apply for? No, sorry, I must have misread that. Demonstrate competence through NYFRS process within the on-call and holding a position within the whole time, would that person be eligible to apply? Absolutely. I think it's similar to the question a couple of the questions we've had before. Tom, I'm not sure if you want to expand.
I think that may mean.
This is a two-part question, isn't it?
Continuation of the question. There's 2 parts to it.
Yeah, I think what it's saying is, you're more than welcome to apply, and please do apply for the supervisory process. If it's the transfer email that came out the other day, that does stipulate that it is a whole-time position where you are. So I think that's what that may be
I believe from what I can read here, it's asking if they are a competent on-call supervisory manager, I presume, can they then transfer to the whole time as a supervisory as opposed to having to apply for the process? And the interview to that would be no, you can't transfer as a supervisory manager. You would have to apply for the process. And the reason for that is because of the differences in the duty system. But nonetheless, there is a process that you can apply for that.
Thanks, John. Apologies, I didn't see the next part. Well, that's it for the questions, unless anybody has any others.
Okay, well, the Slido side of things is being kept available, as Emily said, so I'm sure there may well be other questions that materialise going forward. So feel free to use that, and we'll continue to answer any questions that you may have. So really, it just falls for me now to close this session. Now, Tom's been through the application process, the dates, etc. I fully understand that we've got Christmas coming up, and these processes and the application to these processes is always very stressful. We've all been through that in the most recent future, so I fully understand how it can be very stressful for individuals to start thinking about the application process and the interview process and all that goes with it. So, use the support mechanisms around you, use your people, use your current management structures and layers to help support you through that. It's down to yourselves to complete your application, and it's up to yourselves to come forward and do your best bit at the interviews. But the people are around you to support you. It's people like Tom and Emily who will support and provide advice and guidance should you need it. We can't do it for you, but we can advise and guide, provide advice and guidance for everybody, so it's a level playing field. So please, I urge you to use that, and so that you're not putting yourself under undue stress. But notwithstanding the processes that it's never a nice experience, we do acknowledge that, but it's an essential experience nonetheless, that we put people into that environment and that we assess so that we get the right result at the other end. So, hopefully you feel inspired. I hope that those that have dialed in from other services are encouraged to apply. We want to encourage as much variation as we can do in terms of applicants applying. But everybody on the call really want to see, get your applications in, welcome as much application as we can do, and very good luck to you all, and let's see what comes out of the other end. But I really wish you all well with the process. Try and enjoy it, and above all, enjoy Christmas, and then really get into it so that you can meet the deadline after Christmas. Okay, thanks for dialing in, everyone. Have a great Christmas, and we'll hopefully speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.